Come with us to the Engineers Australia building. Hi guys, I'm Isha. I'm an Industry and Sponsorships Director for Rambo. And this is Regina. She's National Manager of Tertiary Engagement for Engineers Australia. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, Regina?
Yeah, my role, as Isha mentioned, is the National Manager for Tertiary Engagement for Engineers Australia. And what that basically means is we make sure that as many of the student engineers at UNSW in this instance are aware of who Engineers Australia is, and obviously part of our community through the student membership.
Nice. Okay. And leading off on that, what is Engineers Australia and what kind of things do they offer for the students?
Okay. So Engineers Australia is your professional association. Yeah. So for engineers really nationally and of course overseas as well with our chapters and members. And really the core, I suppose, resources for our student members are things like the virtual work experience, industry and networking events. We have a jobs board, as well as an internships hub. And it really is all about ensuring that students have the opportunity to connect with industry and build their network as soon as they start. And the other element is, of course, providing, once again, our student members with resources really to help them not only with, building their confidence when we're talking about, attending an industry night or a careers fair, but also resources to really help you secure, an internship in the first instance, a vacation type role, and of course a grad early career role. And all of that is really packaged with both, in-person events, webinars, and there are plenty of resources online as well that students can obviously engage with.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of different options there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So what would you say, like for a first year, what do you think maybe they should be doing, or should they be doing anything to kind of help with their professional development at that stage? Yeah,
good question. And what I always say when I'm on campus or, events that we collaborate with societies or here at EA is that it's never really too early to actually come along and attend a networking event. Yeah. Okay. Because it's so important to start making those connections, building your brand, so to speak, over time. So when you do hit, second year, let's say, and more importantly, third year, when you are starting to look for that industrial training, you do have a network or, connections already that you can draw on to then be saying, hey, I'm now looking at a role at XYZ instead of starting from scratch and panicking, sort of come third year, for example.
Yeah. So connections are definitely very important. Do you think there's other things students can be trying to do maybe through uni if they're to kind of build up their skill sets for looking for an industrial training role?
Absolutely. Again, with, part of that sort of building your brand concept, again, when I'm out meeting with students across the campuses here in Sydney, it really is about trying to do or get involved in extracurricular activities, and that doesn't necessarily have to be at uni, but when we are talking about that university environment, obviously, the most common opportunities that are available to students are, joining an engineering society, for example, or it can just be a sort of a general student society on campus. Engineers Without Borders is one that I tend to talk to a lot about, so anything around that. So volunteering on campus, volunteering in your own community, even a part of a local sports team. I've come across students who volunteer with, Red Cross, for example, but it really is about engaging in activities outside of your core lectures and tutorials that then allows you to really build on your soft skills.
Yeah.
outside of those volunteering type activities, it is then trying to engage with, sort of short courses or workshops. Again, LinkedIn Learning comes to mind. There are a number of sort of short micro credentials that may be of interest. An EA resource that is, valuable. Again, an extracurricular type activity is, of course, our virtual work experiences. So trying to really, I suppose, have that complete package, if I can use that term, so you've got the academics behind you, but outside of that, you've then got all of these, other activities, that you engage with, really around, like I said, the employability, soft skills, which are super important come the time that a student is ready, to go into the workplace for an internship, for example.
Yeah. And do you think, like, obviously the soft skills are very important, but then some of those roles kind of have more of a technical element, like if you're working with Engineers Without Borders, maybe you gain those skills. Is there like sort of a weighting on what you think is more important?
I don't believe so, and I can only speak to, conversations that I've heard or Q&A panel sessions, if I can, use that as an example, at UNSW and other universities where, faculty or the careers team have invited representatives from an organisation, specifically members of the human resources or the talent acquisition teams, for example. And I know that they will always mention that with the technical skills, that type of, I suppose, knowledge is definitely covered when the student starts, so they will obviously teach that depending on the role that a student will be going into. But what they will absolutely look at is really around the students, again, really more of the soft skills and that character, so a student demonstrating that he or she is open to learning new things, being in a new environment and being receptive to that, being able to, ask questions. Communication is key, particularly in that sort of group team environment. And the other piece is, which, again, you do build over time is that resilience element, so, and that again is what I mean, but, really that sort of complete package where you obviously will have the academic skills, technical skills, which they will build on, but then it's the other side as well, that they will look at.
And you mentioned virtual work experience. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah. So with the virtual work experiences, EA developed 18 modules in partnership with industry. And the whole premise around it is really providing our student members with the opportunity to test themselves, again, for use of a better word, in a safe online environment, and with the modules, students can really, it makes sense to start with a mechanical engineering virtual work experience, for example, if that is what a student is majoring in. And then, there is, of course, objectives and sort of learning outcomes at the start of a virtual work experience module. But the idea is, the students can identify as to where the gaps are in their learning, combination of lectures and tutorials, obviously, and then being able to go, okay, well, I need to read up or perhaps focus on X, Y, Z a little bit more before I then go into a traditional industrial training, for example. What is great with the virtual work experience as well, outside obviously of, being able to do a little check on where you're up to with your learning, is at the end of the module, Engineers Australia also issues a digital badge for students who have completed a module. And it's one of those things where, again, I highly encourage students to be sharing that on their LinkedIn profile, again, demonstrating that they've engaged with extracurricular, and you've got pretty easy to upload on your LinkedIn. Of course, also make a note of it in your, in your resume. Yeah, but it's a great resource. It's there. Being online, students are able to start, stop, continue, save, and complete. An easy resource to do when you're on your way to uni or on your way back home, for example.
So speaking of LinkedIn, I feel like it's a resource. A lot of students probably have a LinkedIn profile, but I feel like they maybe don't know how to use it as effectively as they probably could in order to help them get opportunities. Do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, so tips around LinkedIn and really making use of a resource that all of the students have access to. Again, I tend to encourage students to set one up as soon as they start, and as far as tips around that, and I appreciate the question because a lot of students will say, well, what am I supposed to be posting on there if I'm literally just studying a full-time student? And short answer is there's actually a lot that students can add to it, as part of their LinkedIn activity. Again, the common examples that I tend to use is if a student is, again, it's sort of building your brand, obviously make a clear statement as to what it is that you're currently studying at uni. And if make a concise statement as to ultimately what your goal is after completion of your, engineering degree. Outside of those sort of housekeeping, setting up your profile, as far as activity goes, it's then about, remembering to take a photo if you are at a careers fair or a networking event, or even a RAMSOC event, for example, and share that, and sort of tag any academics or any industry partners that you may have connected with. And by tagging, a particular industry representative, you then, accessing the network, that they have. Another activity that I tend to remind students that they can absolutely share on their LinkedIn as well is any, final projects that they do or submit. And with the final projects or assessments, it's then about highlighting, well, what was your individual contribution to it, and obviously what the result was, so really highlighting that, any awards that you get at university or at work, for example. And then obviously over time, you will then build all of these activities, is one thing. Another, again, part of the housekeeping setup is around, following UNSW engineering, for example. Engineers Australia is one that I recommend, and really any organisations that a student is interested in, because come the time that a talent acquisition manager visits your profile, for example, they'll see your activity, obviously, but at the same time, any learnings that you've done or courses that you've completed and organizations that you're also following. There's a lot. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, which is why I will always recommend, when I am presenting, particularly to a first year cohort, it's never too early to actually create a LinkedIn profile and then start building those activities. And again, when you get to third year, a hiring manager can see, oh, okay, well, this student has done this, over a period of time.
And do you have any success stories of someone who's got a job through LinkedIn or anything that you know?
Not LinkedIn in particular, but certainly success stories from events that we've run at EA. So whether that's from an elevation careers fair that we have annually, and that is a flagship event that we have at Engineers Australia. So students meeting with industry, and then being successful in securing an internship role or perhaps a grad role. We do also have student ambassadors or volunteers at UNSW and around the country, and with an annual event that the student ambassadors run. We've had, again, a couple of our student ambassadors, certainly over the last 5 years that I've been at EA anyway, that have then secured a role off the back of meeting an industry representative from that particular event. Yeah. But I guess the main call to action is you've got to be at the events. You've got to go out there. You've got to be going to these events, meeting with industry. They're certainly not going to come to you and just look you up on LinkedIn. You've got to be going out there, attending these events. Yeah. I'm not saying all of the events, even with EA, we run them regularly. It's about knowing that these events are on, knowing, okay, well, this particular one is relevant to me. I know XYZ is going to be there. So I will make sure that I will go along, attend that event, and make sure that I meet with that representative from, XYZ organization, for example.
I think the other thing I've seen is a lot of people, a lot of students try and attend these events, and then they get to the event and they're kind of scared or not sure what to talk about to make a good impression on the people there. How do you think they could go?
Yeah, so again, that is a common, challenge that then stops students, as you're saying, from going along to these events, right? And it's absolutely understandable. Anxiety kicks in. It's a normal human reaction, right, with anything new that we are doing. And my suggestion that I will also talk to when I'm at events or, doing a networking masterclass, for example, is you've got to do your research. Most events, I'm sure, Ramsoc will do the same. EA, we certainly do. We will note as to who's going to be there as far as, organizations go, right? And leading up to, a student coming along to that event, it's then doing a bit of desktop research and going, okay, well, there are 10 companies that are going to be there. Out of the 10, I want to make sure that I connect with 3 of them because super interested in, opportunities that they have. Yeah. It's then about a student looking at their corporate website, looking at their LinkedIn to really be across what it is that this organization, what their core focus is. LinkedIn is a great resource to really learn as to projects that an organization is currently working on or perhaps are bidding for, right? So that's one element of it. Another key element is then a student going, okay, I know X company is going to be there, and formulating as natural as possible without being robotic,
like
obviously. Exactly. Sort of knowing, okay, I know they're currently working on this project. I am working on a relevant project at uni for this subject. It's about being able to connect the dots, right? So come the time that you are in front of this representative, you can confidently introduce yourself, what it is that you're currently studying, where you're studying, and then being able to say, oh, I saw that, you're currently working on this project. I'm super interested in it because I'm currently also doing a project on this and would love to learn a little bit more about, where the project is up to or what the ultimate kind of finish product is, but like I said, as natural, as authentic as you possibly can, but being able to confidently say that instead of just winging it. And it's important that I think a student will do that for a company that they are interested to, connect with, because those types of conversations are the ones that stick and the ones that industry will remember, instead of a student coming up and going,
what do you do?
Who are you again? What do you do? Like,
do you have a grad program?
Exactly. Do you have a grad program? So those are the things that you shouldn't be doing, and super easy for students to really do nowadays. Like I said, you've got online, you've got all these mobile devices that you can really use. So there's no excuse to not come prepared, right? And like I said, it's good to have a couple of those ready to go, sort of an elevator pitch about yourself, right? So knowing, who's who and what they do. And then off the back of meeting that individual at an event, what I then recommend doing is sending a connect request on LinkedIn, right? With the connect request, again, what I tend to say is please just don't hit send connect. You know, if you can, if your LinkedIn profile or access allows you to do so, send a little message. Hi, XYZ, it was so great to have a chat with you at the EA Elevation Careers Fair. Would love to stay in touch or, continue to connect, send. Okay. Students need to realize that, myself included, I get hundreds of, requests off the back of a lecture, off the back of an event. Same goes for these industry representatives. And again, the ones that we do remember, and it doesn't have to be an essay, literally a sentence or two. And those are the ones that stick and everybody will remember.
And then past that, kind of, because you know how you said kind of like keeping in touch, do you think that's also an important part of it, kind of trying, or do you think it's more so?
I think so. Look, I think it's important to stay connected, particularly, if that organization is really in your top three, you know, as far as, okay, well, I definitely want to land an internship there or a grad role, without stalking that person, I don't think it hurts to, again, if you're following them on LinkedIn, send them a message and say, hey, I saw that, XYZ, that you guys were successful in getting the contract for this project. It'd be great to learn more about that because I'm, that's sort of a thesis or a topic that I'm working on. And again, if you see them at another event, on campus or at an external event, I don't think it hurts, and don't forget, the talent team that will go at uni, they're the ones that are there to really engage with future talent for their organization, so they're not going to mind that students are contacting them. I know in my role, I do tend to have coffee catch-ups with students as well. Again, following myself meeting them at an event and they have questions or want to learn more about how they can really, make use of their EA membership. Like I absolutely have no issue with that, be it I meet them here at EA or I'll say I'm actually going to be on campus on this day. If you happen to be there, let's absolutely, catch up on campus.
Yeah. Okay. And kind of, I guess once you've made those connections and everything, the next step is you're kind of looking for those internships and grad roles. And I feel like that process can kind of feel a bit disheartening for a lot of students because it's like, hi, I'm blah, blah.
It's a lot.
Online assessment. Do you think it's better to kind of focus on a couple or like just try and apply?
Look, it's hard to say. I think it is more of a personal preference, I think, for myself, I will tend to take more of a targeted approach, so I'll have my top 5 or top 10, for example, and I'll connect with those organizations. Whereas other students may go like, all out and send as many applications as possible. Really is up to the student. With that said, what is super important though is that every application that goes out needs to be a tailored application. Okay. So having a clear sort of understanding of what the requirements of the roles are going to be, right? And then focusing your cover letter together with the skills that you're highlighting on your resume, and don't forget the whole objective of your cover letter and your resume is really just to get their attention. You don't have to include everything and anything there. It really is just to pique that hiring manager's interest, that you go into the shortlist pile, and be invited to come in person, or perhaps a telephone or a Zoom interview, Another advice that, again, I will say to students out there, you don't need to necessarily focus on, like the big four banks or your tier 1, tier 2 construction companies as well. Absolutely be open to SMEs or even startups. Those types of environment will allow you to have a broader perspective of the entire organization as well, over just, being involved in one element, of a big company, for example. But I think I cannot stress enough the importance of tailoring it, and at the same time having, another pair of eyes look at it, just to make sure that you've not missed anything. And the last advice is making use of the resources that you guys have at UNSW with the careers team or even with the faculty team. They will have resume workshops, templates. I mean, we have them at EA as well with the resume templates and cover letters, but make use of all of those. The other comment around the resume and the cover letters is not to use AI.
Okay, that's
next question. in putting all of that together, because it is so easy, and I've heard representatives say this again at Q&A panel events that I do. It is so easy for them to know and pick out the ones that AI was used to put it together. With AI, it's there. Absolutely use it more as a guide, or if you want it like guide in formulating a structure, for example, or if you wanted to polish a particular sentence or paragraph, put it in there and see what it brings up, right? Yeah. But you still need to make it your own, because at the end of the day, if you are invited, to come in for an interview in person or online, what you've submitted needs to match
what you say.
In the flesh. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I think maybe what I've seen AI more used for is kind of like what you were talking about with the tailoring of the resume for different roles. Do you think in that scenario it's maybe more or not really?
Look, I think absolutely use it, but I wouldn't simply cut and paste it. Obviously use it and go, okay, now I've sort of got that as a guide, and you can still refine it and make it your own paragraph. Because like I said, what you're submitting online needs to match you and the way that you communicate, the way that you portray yourself, but it is absolutely a useful tool for that. Like I said, put it in there, reframe it to this particular role, organization, and so forth, as a guide, but not to say, write me the whole thing. The same goes for your university assessments, I hope.
Yes. I think we have a no AA policy.
Yeah, okay, good.
So kind of moving more into like your role. So you've been here for 5 years. What do you think what have you found the most rewarding about your time?
The most rewarding for me, and I say my team as well around the country, is really being in a position to help you guys, to help students, I'd like to think that I do make a positive impact in saying, guys, did you know we've got this? Please come along to our events, and really be able to genuinely say, oh my gosh, I've made a difference in helping XYZ. The closest cohort that I can obviously use as an example is our student ambassador team. A member saying, oh my gosh, because of the program, I can now confidently do a presentation. Obviously the nerves will still kick in, but after a few minutes, they're right. I can do this. And the same goes for, like I said, being able to invite students to come along and meet with industry, you know, sort of concrete results or outcomes, you know, instead of just on paper, on screen, emails and so forth. Yeah.
And with the student ambassadors, if that's something people want to get involved in, is that like an opportunity that...
Yeah, so with the student ambassadors or the volunteers that we have, as I mentioned, that is open to all of our student members nationally. We promote that towards the end of each year for the following academic year. So, for example, for 2026, that will go out in October sometime. By go out, I mean it's in the student newsletters that we have at EA. It will also be on our website and on socials. And really, any interested students will just need to complete an application. I will do the interview for the students that are based here in Sydney. And then it's, off we go. And then we've got that team at UNSW this year. We've got a large team. I think we've got about a dozen or 13 students, you know, they're all volunteers. They all want to be there and make a difference for the students, for their peers, essentially, at UNSW.
And what do you think, like, what have you seen have kind of those students have got out of that experience and like the skills that have helped?
Look, the number one outcome for them really comes down once again to the soft skills, employability skills. It's a team effort. So collaboration is huge with the team, particularly a larger team. Obviously, being able to manage time management, right, with university, any volunteering, any casual paid jobs that they do, and of course, life in general. You know, so that time management, presentation skills is huge because I do get them to co-present or even, you know, lead a presentation. And then you've got, you know, sort of the networking skills as well. So again, being able to build on that. And equally important, I must say, is again, being able to build their industry connections, right? Because part of being an EA volunteer is they obviously will have an opportunity to co-deliver events that I do run within sort of the world of tertiary. At the same time, I will also invite them to support events that we do here at the Sydney division. You know, so over that period of volunteering for EA for a year, let's say, or even more, they're then able to really broaden their industry connections. At the same time, I do also raise awareness of the work that they're doing with faculty, you know, so they're across that. XYZ is a member of the UNSW student ambassador community. So again, it will help them with, you know, raising their profile, etc.
And do you have a favourite event you run every year? Or?
A favourite event?
Or one that you think maybe students get the most out of?
Look, I would say Elevation is a big one, you know, that I encourage all students to really connect with. Like I said earlier, it is our flagship careers fair. Another sort of fun events, useful events as well that I encourage all students to come along to are the events that are organised by Young Engineers Australia Sydney, which is a community that I work very closely with. All of them are EA volunteers as well, but the difference is that they are early career engineers already. You know, so they're working industry, that they've been working for, let's say, about 5 years, and their core objective is to support you guys, students, as well as recent graduates with that transition from university to starting an internship or starting, you know, in a grad role. And they do a lot of events monthly, you know, from projects at the pub. You know, they'll do networking events, they'll do site visits. So they do a lot of fun events, you know, but valuable events at the same time. So that is a community that I encourage everybody to look up on LinkedIn and follow. All the events are free as well. The same goes with events that I do and one here at Sydney Division. As long as you are a student member, these events are free.
Cool. More broader with Engineers Australia. So you mentioned the student, then young engineers. Could you like give us a rundown of kind of like the progression, I guess?
With membership, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so with the membership, really the tertiary, I suppose it is at the start of that journey, right, with student membership. Following completion of your degree, it's then moving into a graduate membership, and that unpacks a bit more of the resources that you have access to. A core focus of grad membership continues to be building your network, your connections, but then the element of continuing professional development will start part and parcel of preparing you for that chartership in 5 years onwards, right? But with the graduate membership, depending on the individual, technically speaking, you're looking at about 4 years of grad membership, and then you go on to a full professional membership with 5 years onwards. And at each stage of the membership, the resources that you have access to obviously will broaden as well. A lot of our professional members will volunteer as well to give back and be involved with young engineers. A lot of them will also get involved with school outreach activities that we do, as far as raising awareness of a STEM degree like engineering and what that actually looks like or translates to when you enroll to do engineering, and obviously examples of careers, types of roles that you can get into within the engineering profession. So there's quite a lot. So student is here, and then we've got members all the way here, which are our fellows, so retired engineers who continue to be engaged, not just with EA, but the profession, the engineering profession in general.
Nice. Kind of a complete shifting question.
Yeah.
But since we're the Ramsoc Society specifically, there's kind of been, specifically in the university environment, a bit of discourse about the Mechatronics degree and whether that can open up a good amount of opportunities, and also about whether it's beneficial to double with that and like a comp sci degree to kind of broaden that. Yeah. So what would you say about that versus doing a more, I don't know, traditional engineering degree like mechanical or electrical?
Again, I can only comment on conversations that I've had on the ground, right, and with sort of industry representatives. And I certainly don't think that there is an advantage or a disadvantage with doing, a straight up engineering degree or having a double degree, right? Engineering as a whole is such a portable degree, right? And the skills that you guys are building over that degree, obviously, industry is well aware as to the academic requirements to be accepted into the engineering degree. So I don't think there is going to be a challenge with any engineering students, securing a traditional engineering degree. What I have certainly noticed over the time that I've been at EA, so the last 5 years, is that more and more non-traditional engineering companies are actually attending engineering career fairs, you'll see more and more banks, the big four banks or the consulting company coming in to really attract engineering students into their organization, because like I said, they know that engineering students will have
very transferable skills. They certainly have the academic know-how, like I said, as far as, what those cut-off scores are to get into the degree, right? And then once they get you, let's say, into a banking finance organization, they know that you've got the skill set ability. It's then about being able to train you up, upskill you to their particular environment, so hopefully that answers your question. I think, when we're talking about the employability aspect, going back to a question that you had earlier, it is then about, right, I'm doing this degree, completing this degree but adding to that, supplementing it with non sort of core
deliverables for your degree, you know, so clubs and societies, volunteering, extracurricular activities, and so forth. Yeah.
That answers my question. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Yeah. We're getting there. Cool. I guess my final question would be like, say you had 30 seconds with a student and they were like, what should I do?
What should I do?
What would you say?
Okay, what I always say is please check the events calendar and come along to an event. A bit of a no-brainer as to why you wouldn't. You know, be joining to be a student member and then, you know, coming to these events. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Regina, for your time. No problem.
Today. I definitely did.
Yeah.
Cool. Done.
Yay! We did it!